I had my way about it, they'd all be sent back to Russia or some other unpleasant place.
Hollywood's golden age was filled with glamour, fame, and powerful personalities who seemed larger than life. Two of the biggest stars during this time were Robert Taylor and Clark Gable. Both men worked under the mighty MGM studios. Both were admired for their good looks and charm, and both became household names. Their lives often overlapped, and they even shared the honor of carrying each other's caskets at their funerals. But there was one dark moment that threatened to break their friendship forever. During the years of World War II, Hollywood stars were expected to do their part in the war effort, either by serving in the military or by promoting patriotism on the home front. Robert Taylor, who was known for his loyalty and discipline, witnessed something in Clark Gable that left him shocked and disappointed. The man who was celebrated as the King of Hollywood appeared to be avoiding his duty in a way that Taylor could not respect. In frustration and anger, Taylor privately called Gable a coward. For decades, the story remained buried because such words, if made public, could have destroyed Gable's carefully built reputation. Only years later did parts of the truth come out, reshaping how some people viewed one of Hollywood's most beloved figures. This incident not only revealed a clash of values between two of MGM's biggest stars, but also highlighted the enormous pressure that Hollywood actors faced during the turbulent war years, when their personal choices could either make them heroes or tarnish their public image forever. To understand Robert Taylor's reaction to Gable, it helps to know more about the kind of man Taylor was. He was born Spangler Arlington Bruh on August 5, 1911, in the small farming town of Philly, Nebraska. His unusual name came from his father, and even as a child it set him apart. Teachers often stumbled over how to say it, and his classmates teased him for its German sound, especially during the years of World War I when anti-German feelings ran high. Taylor grew up feeling like an outsider, but he found comfort in music and athletics. He became an excellent cellist under the guidance of Professor Herbert E. Gray, who believed Taylor could become a professional musician. At the same time, he shined in sports, breaking track records at school and earning attention from newspapers across Nebraska. His discipline, early morning practices, and determination built a foundation that would stay with him throughout his life. Though he dreamed of following in his father's footsteps as a doctor, his passion for music and performing eventually led him to Pomona College in California. There, his striking looks and stage presence could not be ignored. He began acting in plays, and in 1932, while performing in Journey's End, he caught the eye of an MGM talent scout. This chance encounter would change his life forever. Soon, Spangler Bruh was gone and Robert Taylor, the Hollywood star, was born. MGM gave him a new name, a carefully crafted image, and a career path that would make him one of the most recognizable faces of the 1930s and 40s. When Robert Taylor signed with MGM, the studio quickly took control of his image. His new name was chosen because it sounded stronger and more American, a name that would look good on movie posters. With his handsome features, piercing blue eyes, and athletic build, Taylor was often cast as the romantic lead or the charming hero. At first, critics dismissed him as too pretty, assuming he had no real acting ability. MGM placed him in films opposite powerful actresses like Greta Garbo and Barbara Stanwyck, hoping to boost his credibility. His big breakthrough came in 1936 with Camille, in which he played opposite Garbo. The film was a huge success and proved that Taylor could hold his own as a serious actor. Still, Taylor often felt trapped by the studio system. MGM controlled every aspect of his life, what roles he played, how he dressed, even how he walked and talked. They pushed him into tougher, rugged roles like Billy the Kid in an attempt to reshape his image. Behind the scenes, Taylor began to feel as if he was losing pieces of his true self. Yet he rarely complained, remaining loyal to MGM for an astonishing 25 years, longer than almost any other actor of his time. His obedience made him dependable in the eyes of the studio, but it also made him appear less exciting to the press compared to stars like Gable or Spencer Tracy. Still, audiences loved him and his career flourished, making him one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. Taylor's personal life was just as fascinating as his career. In 1939, he married Barbara Stanwyck, a powerful and respected actress who was already well established in Hollywood. Their relationship was filled with public attention and private struggles. MGM reportedly encouraged, and even arranged, the marriage to silence rumors about both stars. The wedding itself was staged with Hollywood precision, down to the timing of the vows. Barbara was a strong, independent woman, and many people gossiped that she held more power in the relationship than Taylor. Over the years, the marriage was troubled by Taylor's affairs. He was known to have had relationships with actresses like Lana Turner, and during the filming of Quo Vadis in Rome, he pursued other women openly. Stanwyck tried to hold the marriage together, but the betrayals eventually led to their divorce in 1951. The separation shocked Hollywood because many had viewed them as one of the industry's most stable couples. The divorce terms were harsh on Taylor, with Stanwyck receiving a percentage of his income for years to come. Yet, despite the scandals, Taylor continued to maintain a clean, disciplined public image, largely because of his loyalty to his work and his ability to present himself as calm and steady in the public eye. His personal struggles showed the tension between Hollywood's carefully staged image of stars and the messy reality of their private lives. The turning point that led Robert Taylor to call Clark Gable a coward came during World War II. At the time, Hollywood actors were under tremendous pressure to contribute to the war effort. Many young stars enlisted, while others were encouraged to sell war bonds or make propaganda films. Taylor, even though he was in his 30s and not required to serve, made the choice to enlist in the U.S. Naval Air Corps in 1943. He became a lieutenant junior grade and was assigned as a flight instructor, later also working on military training films. Taylor had wanted to fight overseas, but his age and status kept him stateside. Still, he put his heart into the job, creating instructional films and training young pilots with clarity and dedication. Clark Gable, on the other hand, had a different experience. After the tragic death of his wife, Carol Lombard, in 1942, Gable did enlist in the Army Air Forces, but according to some reports, he was reluctant, and his role was more for publicity than combat. He was older, already a major star, and the studios worried about risking him in dangerous missions. When Taylor saw what he considered hesitation or avoidance on Gable's part, he reportedly lost respect for him. Taylor, who valued discipline and loyalty, could not tolerate what he viewed as weakness. In private, he called Gable a coward. Whether fair or not, this remark revealed the differences in how each man viewed duty and honor. For Taylor, service, even if it meant staying home to train others, was a matter of pride. For Gable, who had suffered personal loss, the situation was more complicated. Still, the comment left a lasting shadow over their friendship. After the war, Robert Taylor returned to Hollywood, but things were changing. The studio system that had controlled stars like him for decades was beginning to weaken. Taylor continued to make successful films, including Quo Vadis in 1951, which became one of MGM's biggest hits and rescued the studio from financial trouble. He also found success in westerns, a genre that suited his disciplined, rugged persona. By the late 1950s, however, Taylor's long contract with MGM came to an end. It had lasted an incredible 24 years, the longest of any star in MGM history. Free from the studio, he ventured into television, a move that many big film stars considered beneath them at the time. His show The Detectives ran from 1959 to 1962 and helped him adapt to the new entertainment landscape. Later, he took over from Ronald Reagan as host of Death Valley Days. While his film career slowed, his television work gave him a steady presence in American households. Taylor's willingness to embrace television showed his practicality and discipline, qualities that had defined him since his youth. Unlike some of his peers who struggled when the old Hollywood system faded, Taylor adapted and remained relevant. His choices reflected the same steady loyalty and sense of responsibility that had once made him judge Clark Gable so harshly during the war. Behind his steady career, Robert Taylor faced personal struggles in his later years. He had been a heavy smoker since his youth, often consuming 3 packs of cigarettes a day. By the late 1960s, the effects of this habit caught up with him. In 1968, at the age of 57, Taylor was diagnosed with lung cancer. Even after learning the truth, he initially continued to smoke, a sign of how deep the addiction ran. Despite his illness, he kept working, appearing on Death Valley Days, and fulfilling his responsibilities as much as his health allowed. To understand why Robert Taylor's criticism of Clark Gable cut so deeply, it's important to see who Gable was and how the world viewed him. Born in 1901 in Ohio, Gable had a rough childhood. His mother died when he was very young, and he was raised by his father and stepmother. Unlike Taylor, who grew up disciplined and musically inclined, Gable worked odd jobs and lived a restless, uncertain youth. His rugged charm and masculine appeal eventually landed him on stage, and by the early 1930s, he caught the attention of Hollywood. MGM signed him, and his career exploded. By the mid-1930s, Gable had become known as the King of Hollywood. His most famous role was, of course, Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, 1939, which remains one of the most iconic performances in cinema history. Audiences adored him not only for his screen presence, but also for the idea that he represented the ultimate man's man. Strong, confident, and fearless. But behind the image, Gable was more complicated. He sometimes doubted himself and felt pressure to live up to the expectations placed upon him. When Carole Lombard, the love of his life, died tragically in a plane crash while on a war bond tour, Gable was devastated. Her death pushed him into enlisting, but many later wondered whether his service was more symbolic than genuine. For a man like Robert Taylor, who valued discipline above all, this gap between image and action must have been disappointing. To him, Gable had everything: the fame, the respect, the wealth, yet lacked the kind of unwavering commitment that Taylor considered the true measure of a man. Hollywood during World War II was unlike anything before or since. Studios and stars were expected to prove their patriotism in highly visible ways. Those who enlisted gained public admiration, while those who didn't often faced whispers of cowardice. Actors like James Stewart flew dangerous combat missions, while others like John Wayne stayed behind and were criticized for it. MGM, being one of the most powerful studios, was careful about how its stars were presented to the public. Clark Gable, as the biggest box office draw, was too valuable to risk. But MGM also knew that his reputation required at least some show of service. They supported his involvement in the Army Air Forces, where he was assigned to make training and propaganda films. Still, Gable managed to fly a few missions over Europe, which technically put him in danger. Even so, skeptics like Robert Taylor saw this as more performance than sacrifice. Taylor, who had embraced the less glamorous but highly demanding role of training young pilots, believed in duty without spotlight. In his mind, Gable's war record did not match the public's image of him as the fearless king. Hollywood's stage-managed version of patriotism clashed with Taylor's straightforward sense of responsibility. This divide reflected a larger question about the role of celebrities in times of crisis. Should they risk their lives like ordinary citizens, or should they serve by inspiring morale from home? For Taylor, the answer was simple. Real men didn't hesitate. Gable's hesitation, whether fair or not, became the reason for Taylor's harsh label of cowardice. Beyond Hollywood glamour, Robert Taylor's life also intersected with politics in ways that further revealed his values. In the late 1940s, as America entered the Cold War, fear of communism spread rapidly. The House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, began investigating alleged communist influence in Hollywood. Many stars resisted, fearing it was an attack on free speech, while others cooperated fully. Taylor was one of those who cooperated. In 1947, he testified before HUAC and named colleagues he suspected of having communist ties. This earned him criticism from some of his peers, who saw him as a friendly witness and believed he betrayed fellow actors. But from Taylor's perspective, he was doing his duty as an American citizen. To him, loyalty to his country outweighed loyalty to colleagues. This reflected the same rigid values that shaped his judgment of Gable during the war. For Taylor, patriotism wasn't something to compromise on. His testimony damaged some of his friendships, but it also aligned him with conservative political circles, especially later when he supported Ronald Reagan. Taylor's political choices reinforced the image of a man who believed in order, duty, and loyalty, even if it meant alienating those close to him. In many ways, this outlook explained why he could never accept what he saw as Gable's weakness during World War II. Taylor lived by a strict personal code, and those who didn't measure up to it were judged harshly, whether they were friends, colleagues, or even fellow Hollywood legends. Despite their differences, fate eventually brought Robert Taylor and Clark Gable back together in an unexpected way. In 1960, when Gable died of a heart attack shortly after filming The Misfits, Taylor served as one of his pallbearers. Nearly a decade later, when Taylor himself passed away from lung cancer in 1969, Gable was gone. But the memory of their complicated friendship lived on. Both men, despite their conflicts, represented the height of MGM's power during Hollywood's golden age. Taylor, with his disciplined, steady career, and Gable with his larger-than-life charisma formed two sides of the same coin. One valued honor and loyalty above all, while the other embodied charm and emotional depth. In the end, history remembers both, though for different reasons. Taylor is admired as one of the most handsome men of his era, a loyal MGM soldier who transitioned smoothly into television and carried himself with dignity. Gable is remembered as the king of Hollywood, the man whose role in Gone with the Wind cemented him as an icon forever. The story of Taylor calling Gable a coward adds complexity to both legacies. It shows how even the brightest stars carried private doubts